Let's stick on the microbiome piece and you talk about in the book certain species of bacteria that some people can have that can actually break down oxalates. So talk about what that is and how many people have that.
Well, there's the point of the arrow is something called Oxalobacter fermentagenes, and that there's several varieties of it, I believe, at least, maybe 3 to 6 varieties of Oxalobacter that a lot of us don't have. They're thinking that maybe up to 30% of us, 10 to 30% of us have some versions of Oxalobacter. But there are many lactobacillus bacteria and others, and there's a whole potential community of maybe 200 bacteria, maybe 2,000, but some community of bacteria can work together under different dietary and changing dietary circumstances. The kind of starch you eat, the kind of fiber you eat or don't eat will affect who grows. But they have to have this community in order to survive. They're very hard to inoculate it. There's a new group that's working on developing these commensal. They're trying to manufacture groups of commensal bacteria where you could use them as a fecal transplant and try to get this whole ecosystem to take hold and adapt to the different changes you make in your diet from day to day to try to restore some of that, because the gut will try to excrete oxalate, and that's a way of getting rid of it.
As we talk about cutting down on these foods and them being produce and different superfoods in that realm, I can see one of the ways that people are going to go about adjusting their diet is taking in more meat. And I want to tie this into the fiber piece that we were talking about in the microbiome. Naturally, they're going to get, and again, you talked about people can do this on a vegan diet, and I want to touch on that in a minute. But if somebody goes to including more meat and cutting back on the amount of fiber for the microbiome, how do you think about that? Because fiber is a big thing in the health and wellness space right now. You talk about it being a myth in your book, so I want to hear your stance on why, if somebody is taking in less produce, less fiber, they don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, since we get very excited about certain topics, it was going to be the DNA was going to solve everything, and once we cracked the DNA code, we'd know it all, and we'd be done with illness. And now it's the microbiome. If we just crack the code of the microbiome and feed it properly and tend and feed your microbiome, all peace will break out and everything will be perfect. The problem is that we're not fermenters by nature. That's not our setup. We don't have a big enough cecum and a big enough colon to be big fermentation chambers and be relying on the fermentation of fiber for our health and well-being. And basically, bacteria don't need that much help. They need to stop being murdered by chemicals and antibacterial agents, because and the high oxalate foods are promoting real problems with infectious disease and other problems with dysbiosis, where the wrong things are taking over. We have acidic, toxic bodies that allow dysbiosis to occur, where commensal things are now becoming pathologic because there's now too much yeast and too much this and that. And so you can get this endotoxemia from too much of the wrong things, but you can get endotoxemia from just too much bacteria. The bacteria put out toxins, and the body tries to garden and control how many bacteria are growing on and in the body. And by overfeeding it with just random fiber, you're fighting the body's desire to keep that under control and you think more is better. We think more is better. Western culture, more spinach is better, more bacteria is better, more. Well, you can overdo feeding bacteria and make yourself quite sick. They're now blaming endotoxins that come from bacteria for dementia. And yet saying, eat a lot of fiber so you can make a lot of endotoxins so you can get dementia. It's a little bit dishonest. And I think the reason it's easy to get dishonest because someone jumps to a product to promote or to sell or to manufacture. And it's easy to make tons of money selling these supplements that are full of probiotics, prebiotics, postbiotics, all this stuff on very incomplete knowledge. There's much more we don't know than we do know. And you're hearing this because they're pushing products as much as anything, and a philosophy that I'm not sure why people want to be fermentation chambers. I'm not sure why I want to be bloated and farting all the time, but feel free to do that. I just wouldn't recommend it.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
People are literally buying these massive clamshell boxes of spinach and using half pound or more of spinach every day. That is really toxic. I was looking back at this thing that I really love. I wanted to share this with you.